Yeah, and then kind of thinking back to, you were saying like in high school that food was kind of the subject of your arts, but I want to kind of go even farther back to like a very young Jacqueline, the tomato, even okay, a little bit after the tomato phase, but like what was kind of like your introduction into, I guess, like just kind of like the world of creativity and art, like what kind of, yeah, got you into being an artist, like from a very young age?
My parents have always like enrolled me in like a lot of different classes. Like we did,
Mm.
or I did like swimming or like piano, just all these random things just to see what I liked. And like something that I always did was like draw on like furniture or like I would be sneaky about it. So like they would know until later, but like there would be like so many drawings like under the table.
What?
Um,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I was a naughty kid, but yeah, like
Like
I
a
was
good naughty. That's like a good naughty though. It's like,
yeah, yeah. It's like it's kind of I was just trying to send a message, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think after that they're like, "Oh, I think she wants to draw instead."
Yeah,
So
she might
since
like drawing a little bit, maybe. She's
yeah,
drawing under the
maybe.
table.
So yeah, since then I like used to watch like YouTube videos and like follow random tutorials and I ended up
Mm.
taking like lessons. So I feel like that's always been like my favorite subject.
Drawing, you would say, out of like, you mean like drawing specifically out of like the different mediums?
Mhm.
I got you. And then, yeah,
Or I guess painting. I went
painting,
into
right, yeah.
painting like later, but yeah.
Mhm. Okay, but yeah, the drawing, the painting pipeline obviously is pretty strong.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but yeah, and then also, did you have like any kind of like favorite artists growing up, or yeah, I guess just like creators? Because I mean, I guess at that point we were too young to like be on like social media, but but yeah, so like I guess in terms of like yeah, were there like any of like kind of like the more classic artists that you were a fan of, or yeah, what did that kind of look like for you in terms of like your influences or inspirations?
hmm Ooh, I feel like a lot of different artists inspired me. Like I feel like at that age, like I didn't really know whose work I was looking at, but like
Yeah.
I loved like going to museums and my favorite was like the oil painting sections.
Mhm.
But I guess like once I started to understand like more of the famous artists, I think Van Gogh was definitely my favorite because
Mhm.
I just loved like the textures that he created in his pieces and like the colors. So I think I took some influence from that like in my later pieces like in high
Mhm.
school. But yeah, the that for sure like stood out for me.
Okay, got you. And then, do you feel like your like Chinese culture at all influenced like how you made art, or do you feel like just obviously being in like, the West and being in California, like do you feel like that kind of just like your environment more so influenced it?
Yeah, I feel like I was fortunate that I grew up around a lot of like Chinese people or like I
Mhm.
was kind of I guess I have more or like I was exposed to a lot of like Chinese culture
Right.
where I grew up and my art teacher was actually Chinese as well.
Oh,
So she taught me a lot about like different like Chinese mediums and like artists. We looked at a lot of like different artists for inspiration and yeah, and I feel like later on when I was like doing my portfolio pieces, I was also basing that off of like my or like my Chinese culture and also like um just like my experience with my family. So obviously like I talked about food a lot, so I feel like food was kind of like a big part of that and like I was trying to be more intentional about the types of food that I was showing and like what I was
mhm.
referencing and like the exact memories or moments that I had and just use images from that to like use as reference.
Okay. No, that's super cool to hear that you were able to kind of grow up in an area with, people of similar culture, leading into, your kind of creative journey from as you screwed through high school and then your AP like your AP portfolio. What would you say was like a piece in your portfolio that you were most proud of that helped you get the top score of a five?
I think my favorite piece was um the biggest one that I had, which was the one with like fish and like the salad dishes on there. I think that
Hmm.
was the piece where I started to play with my or like play with the subject in my paintings the most because I was like so worried about following what was in the picture the whole time in the beginning when I first started out. But my teacher encouraged me to kind of push myself to like explore different things I could incorporate into the painting. So I was
Hmm.
incorporating like different like fishes in there and like having them float around. I feel like looking back at it now, I don't know if it's kind of messed up that like it was like a seafood salad and I also had like fish like swimming above it. Like I don't know. I don't know
Oh,
what.
so this is some sort of like different sort of metaphor here that you were low key, low key. I mean, hey, but it's I guess it's up to us as the audience to interpret what we see in that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. But no, yeah, that I think that's awesome that you're like your teacher pushed you to kind of, you know, break away from just like, looking at like just kind of recreating something from reference exactly as you see it because I think there's
Mhm.
obviously just so much more that you can tap into when you're kind of just use your own perspective and kind of manipulate things that are different from what exactly you're seeing. That's something I personally am trying to I think work on as an artist is just like because I'm just so used to drawing things from reference and kind of like
Yeah.
replicating things, but kind of like just shifting to kind of seeing something you can use as reference, but then obviously shifting things within it
Hmm.
to kind of achieve whatever piece you're trying to achieve. But
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
yeah. And then in terms of like your portfolio, like how I guess like how confident did it make you kind of like when you were looking at different schools to apply to yeah, when I was because obviously when you're applying for art school, you need to, or maybe people that haven't applied to art school wouldn't know, but yeah, when
Mhm.
you're applying to art school, you need to have like a portfolio of work to show the different schools. So yeah, how like confident did you feel going into that whole process, having this really strong portfolio that you made?
I think it made me feel more confident that I had like a portfolio that I knew that I pushed myself in and like I knew when looking at schools I wanted to go to a school that valued art and like there was, like a small program for that. I feel like to be honest, like I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to get into. I think it was a last minute decision for me to decide or a last minute decision for me to go into like the visual arts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think this whole time I was like, oh yeah, focusing on what would make the most money or like what is the more traditional path. But I think senior year or like junior year, I started realizing that, if I'm enjoying this or I feel like there's so much more for me to explore in this field, that it wouldn't hurt to, give it a chance and like submit my portfolio for these schools.